That tattoo has a Nazi affiliation, and I would like to know, is that accurate? Are you a secret Nazi?
I am not a secret Nazi.
So that was Graham Platner yesterday on Pod Save America podcast, where he basically outed himself. He gave the podcasters some opposition research on himself, which is not something campaigns would traditionally do. Normally, they'd wait for the opposition to release the information, but it would seem that Graham wanted to get ahead of it. Now, keep that in mind. Put a pin in that. In fact, I'm going to ask you to put a pin in a few things while we have this conversation. Now, everybody's talking about this. We know the end result here. He's got the tattoo on his chest. It's a Totenkopf, a word that I didn't know 24 hours ago. Now I'm quite familiar with it. And so there's a lot of back and forth. Did he get the tattoo and find out later what it was? Did he get the tattoo knowing what it was? Is he a secret Nazi, or is he just stupid? Listen, I spent 13 years as an Army interrogator. I was highly trained to read people's behavior, analyze their words, and analyze their actions, and draw conclusions which other people's lives depend on. I've watched Graham's interview. I've analyzed the facts. I've analyzed his behavior. Let me tell you my conclusion here. But first, make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and tell me what you think, good or bad. And after the video, if my analysis provides you some insight you didn't have before, hit the subscribe button. Let's look at this objectively. Now, for the interest of transparency, I'm going to tell you I like Graham Platner. I love the campaign he's running in Maine. I hate that Janet Mills entered the race. I don't know how Democrats can be so fucking tone deaf to not be able to read the room, that you got a guy in Graham Platner who's destroying his Republican opponent, but they have to enter the senior Democrat in the race simply because he's too progressive and what would seem like too young, but that's another conversation. We're not having that conversation here, but I think it's important that you know my thoughts on that before I give you my analysis of Graham. I was a Graham fan. I like his policies. I like what he's advocating for. I'm on the same side as him on most issues, but I'm going to analyze this topic objectively. First of all, he says he got the tattoo in 2007 while in the military in a foreign country, drunk in the Marine Corps. As an Army combat veteran, that shit checks out. All of that shit checks out. I literally have a tattoo on my chest I got while I was drunk on R&R from Iraq. It happens all the time. Then he says he didn't know what it was. It just looked like a cool skull and crossbones or something along those lines. Sure, okay, fine. That was 2007. So now it's been 18 years. 18 years. Oh, sorry. It reminded me of the song. Anytime I hear the word 18 years, it reminds me of the song. And he didn't know what it was until this opposition research came out. So there's multiple things to discuss here. On one side of the coin, I myself could not have readily identified a Totenkopf 24 hours ago. I myself would have had no idea that was Nazi symbology. I'm also admittedly not super educated or well-read on Nazi symbology. It's a very niche subject that I have not spent a lot of time studying, so I wouldn't know. So is it quite reasonable that he didn't know? Sure. Also, there were several polls that were done kind of unofficially across the internet yesterday of people asking their audience this question: did you know what it was? And the common turnout was damn near 50-50. Some were 60-40, others 55-45, damn near 50-50. So it's reasonable to say that 40 to 50% of people didn't know what a Totenkopf was. So is it reasonable to say that Graham didn't know? Sure, that's reasonable. That's what we call a reasonable person standard. So I think it's reasonable in and of itself for a person to not know what it is. However, pause for effect. After learning what it was, I did what reasonable people would do, and I researched it. And I've learned some things that, quite frankly, blow my mind. Did you know that the Totenkopf, was the common symbol found on Nazi hats? Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Look at this from Google. Just Google Totenkopf Nazi hat. It's on every goddamn one of them. I didn't know that, or I had at least never noticed it. Did you know that amongst Nazi symbology, the Totenkopf is considered one of the 3 or 4 most common symbols? I didn't know that. Now, the first few you see on these charts, I would have known those are Nazi symbols, pretty well known. But I didn't know that one of the most common is the Totenkopf. Did you know that? Now, you're going to say to me, wait a minute, Jolly, that contradicts what you just said. Even if it is the 3rd most common piece of symbology, you just said 40 to 50% of people didn't know it. You just said you yourself didn't know it. You said it was pretty reasonable for people not to know it. Yeah, I did. So now let's talk psychology, because that's what I'm good at. Let's talk human behavior, because that's what I'm good at. You ever bought a car and then you notice everybody else driving the same car? We've all done it. A few years ago, about 6 years ago, I traded my Toyota Camry in for a Mercedes-Benz, and suddenly everybody I saw was driving a Mercedes. Those people were already driving those Mercedes, but I hadn't noticed it until I got one. You ever notice somebody's got the same shirt on as you? You didn't notice everybody else's shirts, but you noticed the guy who was wearing the same shirt you have on. It's a psychological phenomenon where we identify things in other people that we associate with ourselves. You ever notice that when somebody does something that annoys you, the truth is that you also do that thing and you hate that you do it? The people we dislike the most are the people who have qualities that we dislike in ourselves. We notice them more because we do them. It's psychology. So, I'm sorry, but if I had a tattoo on my chest, and for the record, I don't, Graham Platner does, but if I had a tattoo on my chest for 18 years of a Totenkopf, then I would have noticed it appearing through those 18 years. Take, for example, 2013, there was a TV series called Mitchell and Webb. I've never seen it, and maybe Graham Platner's never seen it, but watch this clip.
Have you noticed that our caps have actually got little pictures of skulls on them?
I don't,
Hans, are we the baddies?
See? It's being talked about. Even in this clip, they make jokes. You ever notice the skull and bones on our hat? Maybe we're the bad guys. It's being talked about. There's other movies from World War II about the Holocaust, about Nazi Germany, and that I am absolutely certain this Totenkopf appears in them. And if you and I were watching those movies, we probably wouldn't even notice it, which is why, going back to my original point, 40 to 50% of the people didn't know what the fuck it was, which is why a reasonable person might not know what it was. But I assure you, from a psychological standpoint, if it was tattooed on my goddamn chest and I saw it in a film, I would immediately notice it. That's true. So I'm sorry. It's a tough one for me to believe, Graham. But Jolly, are you saying he's lying? No. A good interrogator never says you're lying. A good interrogator just identifies deception. That's our job. We identify deceptive behavior. Now, to be fair and balanced, Fox News pun, I can't prove that he's lying. I can't prove that he knew. And to be fair, he may not have known. What I'm saying about the Totenkopf is not 100% foolproof. I'm just saying that more than likely, probably most likely, because that's just how fucking brains work, that if you had the fucking tattoo for 18 years, you would have noticed it pop up on a TV screen, a movie screen, a book. Especially this guy. He doesn't seem like a dummy. He's pretty well educated. So what does that mean? That brings me to my next point. Does that mean he's a secret Nazi? No. It doesn't mean that. Not necessarily. I've already told you his story, that he was drunk in another country somewhere as a Marine and got a tattoo that he thought looked cool. And I don't think when he put that on his body that he knew what it was. That's my opinion. One of the biggest reasons for thinking that he didn't know what it was when he put it on his body was the Reddit posts that were leaked recently where he was basically progressive as fuck. He was saying ACAB, and I love that shit. He was saying that, these racist rednecks out in the country, and I love that shit. He was calling white people out for doing white people shit, and I love that shit. He was saying shit that I agree with wholeheartedly. And guess who wouldn't agree with that? Guess who wouldn't agree with his beliefs in the Reddit post from his P-Hustle account? Nazis. Nazis wouldn't agree with it. But while we're on the topic of the Reddit post, let me interject here that he also posted on Reddit a joke asking why black people don't tip. And they asked him about that on Pod Save America. His answer sucked. He said it was a legitimate question because he used to bartend in Maine. What? Are you fucking kidding me? Maybe, I don't know, maybe when you typed out that dumbass question on Reddit, you didn't see the problem with it. But all these years later, especially while you seem to be much more educated on these matters, you still think that's a legitimate question? You worked in Maine, my guy, where it's like 95% white folk. How many black patrons visited your bar for this question to be quote-unquote legitimate? Get the fuck out of here. This question is rooted in anti-blackness, and your answer is indicative that you haven't yet deconstructed that anti-blackness, but I digress. Let's get back to whether or not he's a secret Nazi. The job I had in military intelligence, there was times where people in my field did what's called clandestine operation, where you assume another identity. Now, I have some understanding of how that works. If this guy was a secret Nazi looking to infiltrate our government and get you to elect him, I don't think the fucking guy is going to put the third most common Nazi symbol known to fucking Nazi Germany tattooed on his chest. Goddamn, he's either the dumbest secret fucking Nazi to ever secret Nazi, or he's not a secret Nazi. So is Graham Platner a secret Nazi? I don't know. I think Stephen Miller is. I think Stephen Bannon is. And I'm being pretty loose and liberal with the word secret here. They're actual fucking Nazis. But here's what I think. This is the conclusion I come to after watching this play out, after researching the Totenkopf, looking at his leaked Reddit post, knowing his policy positions since he's been running for Senate in Maine. My conclusion is this. 2007 was drunken Marine shit. I believe that somewhere along the way, he learned what it was. And in an amazing display of white privilege and bad decisions, he didn't cover it up. That's stupid. That's dumb. And that needs to be addressed. That needs to be explained. I know how white people make arguments. White people always lean on, well, it wasn't my intention. But I think it's very important that we bring up impact over intent right now in this conversation. As soon as this guy learned what that was, should have been covered up. And I just don't think that he learned about it this week. Sorry. I find it wild for him to have even entered the Senate race without covering it up, because I feel like he probably knew what it was. But again, to be fair, the fact that he did enter the main Senate race and not have it covered up does leave the door open. Maybe he didn't know. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just analyzing the data here. That's my job. I don't know his intentions. I don't know his heart. I only know what I know about Graham Platner as much as anybody else does, and that's what's publicly available for research and through my lens of my training as an Army interrogator. That's it. That's all I know. I agree with his policies. I like where he stands on issues. I like that he's not 77 years old. I like that he's not afraid to go against the grain. I hate that he hasn't addressed his anti-blackness. I hate that he's probably lying about not knowing what the goddamn tattoo was. But let me be abundantly fucking clear here. This is not my place to discuss how much damage is done here, because I'm not the affected community. The Jewish community is directly affected by this symbology. Now, Graham Platner has been openly against anti-Semitism. He's made his position on that clear. He's against anti-Semitism. But I just feel along the way he had to have seen this symbol somewhere, should have known it, should have covered it up. So the harm done to the Jewish community here should be addressed, and their voices should be heard. And there's at least one person who told Jewish Insider a decade ago that he specifically called this tattoo his Totenkopf. Straight up said, oh, this is my Totenkopf. Now, he's denied this, but here's the thing. I think this is the conversation that we should be having. Why did you keep it? Was it the it wasn't my intent argument? Was it the I didn't know what it was when I got it argument? Or did you genuinely not fucking know until yesterday? That's just a hard pill for me as an intellect to swallow, Graham. Sorry. Guys, I don't know. But what I do know is, as much as I like his policies, he can't be the only progressive in Maine willing to stand on business. I gave him credit for outing himself on the podcast. That's not common. I give him credit for facing it head on and saying, I'm going to cover it up. He's not dodging, and he's facing it head on. So I don't know what happens today and tomorrow and how this entire thing plays out. And I could be wrong in my analysis. I could be right in my analysis. I don't know how that plays out. But let me tell you what I do know for a fact. Let's end this video on fact. Fact. Janet Mills is not the candidate for this first Senate position in Maine. The Democratic Party thinks that 70-plus-year-old people who are career Democrats deserve every seat, and that the 40-something-year-olds are supposed to be playing second fiddle until the people holding the position die. I do know that that's exactly how we got to where the fuck we are now, because the Democratic Party can't get their shit together, and I do know that the policies and the type of candidate Graham Platner has been is the type of candidate that we need prior to his anti-blackness and his Nazi tattoo. It's the type of candidate progressives need, and it is the type of candidate that needs to start filling the ranks of the Democratic Party. I do know that working class people and progressives across this country are forming a giant coalition because we are all fucking tired of establishment Democrat status quo bullshit. So I don't know if Graham Platner knew. I don't know if he just found out this was a Nazi symbol. I don't know if he's a secret Nazi racist. I don't know if he'll just end up being another John Fetterman. I just know that no matter what happens to Graham Platner, we cannot let establishment Democrats have the W here. We cannot let the status quo be the way out of this. We cannot let progressivism die with the scandal. We need somebody to take his place who's a hard-charging progressive that doesn't have a Nazi tattoo and open anti-blackness. Who will that be? I don't know. But I do know I still wouldn't vote for fucking Janet Mills.